something that I came up with wasn't necessarily surprising, and I'm willing to bet other people have dealt with it too, so whatever. It's the fact that teaching people in person is so much easier because I teach software. I can go behind them and look at their computers. Having an issue, Alec, I can look exactly at it and be like, oh, it was this. Now, and I was telling PJ, it's a lot of swapping screen sharing, and I've gotten to minimize that as much as possible by forcing my clients to drive almost 100%. If I'm not sharing a slide, I put the client, they are in control and they're sharing their screen so that I can literally see if something goes wrong. So that's probably not too surprising, but that's been one of my biggest challenges. And not to steal PJ's thunder, but what she brought up, I thought was really interesting. So PJ, do you want to say it? Because I wouldn't mind having a broader discussion on that too.
Yeah, I was just checking in on this idea of your team. So you all know that just delivering, not only in person is a lot of energy, but delivering over Zoom takes even probably double or triple the amount of energy to connect over the Zoom waves, as I say. And I realize that we do like week-long experiences sometimes where we break up over a series of days. We have onboarding happening this week. We have monthly onboarding. We have learning week happening. We have these like learning sprints. It's like a lot of energy. And so what's been surprising or just more of being more cautious of is just checking in on the teams, like Wellbeing. And so sometimes after like a very long week of having to deal with all our new hires and all the questions, Zach, who runs our onboarding, I'll have him, like, do you need to take Monday off? Do you need to take a day, half day, just to rejuvenate or just to renew the energy you just like gave and to all of our new hires? And so, I almost like can't underestimate just the idea that people are probably more tired than they were before, given that we have like more time to think about sleep. And then just like making sure they still want to bring that energy over and over again, month to month. I just try to think about if the facilitator is not bringing that energy, it does create a weird vibe over Zoom. So I've been checking in, probably over checking in on my team during this time, because they are the ones holding space for these conversations and the training. So I think that was that.
To just add on to that, and I'd be interested to see what other people are doing. What my company has been doing, which I really like where I work, they do a good job with a lot of things. They provided us some different tools to kind of help with that. So we have a weekly, so HRE, and I bet not a lot of people even do it, so but you check in, this thing called Stand Out every Friday. You say what you've kind of done, what you liked and what you hated, and you let your manager know, like, hey, am I going to need you for anything next week and all this stuff. And I'm pretty honest in there. I'm a pretty transparent guy. And I tell my boss, like, oh, it was a drag. This one client was just awful or whatever. And he always responds. He does take the time to read that. If I take the time to write it, he responds. So that's one tool they offered us. They've also offered us like a free telehealth, like psychologist kind of thing, which I think is really good. I should probably take advantage of it. I haven't done it yet, but like to get to talk to a therapist or something for like an hour a month, I think we get for free. Seems pretty legit, you know? I personally haven't gotten a lot of social interaction. I've been trying to like just really stay out of going to places and be the good little person to try to help stop the spread. My wife works in the ER. I'll tell you guys, it is overrun. Okay. And because of that, I love doing things like this, honestly. That's why why are you on this on your day off? Because I love talking to people and getting info and learning and stuff like this. So my company's done some good things to not only manager-wise, like PJ is, checking on people, but also offered a couple tools. And I wonder what you guys have. Is there anything like that for you? Because I love stealing ideas like that and bring it back to my company too, you know?
My company is really interesting when it comes to that, Alec. For example, our workforce is a mix between full-time staff members, part-time people, PRN people. Unlike Eric and Steven, most of our workforce is 95% virtual. So they don't get the opportunity to connect with, a direct supervisor or the, executive VP or whatever. So we've had to rely upon a great deal of communication from our corporate partners down in Houston. But when it comes to the having those huddles, what I'll call huddles and things like that, that's typically been more of a one-on-one between supervisor and employee facilitated conversation. What makes it challenging though is because of our part-time folks, we do have the challenge of from a payroll standpoint. Particularly, cash flow was very big concern early on in the pandemic. So, we're very conscientious of even the remotest conversation. If it took longer than 15 minutes, then it had to get on time cards and things like that. I'd like to see something along those lines from, once we get out of this. To have a little bit more coherent weekly stand down meeting, whatever you want to call it, huddle, tailgate, whatever, water cooler. But then the other thing that we do is we have generally in my sector, we have what are called industry calls or client calls. And basically what that means is all our people that are servicing a given industry or servicing a given client usually have a monthly Zoom meeting, Ring Central meeting, and we talk about the best practices and new processes or troubleshoot benchmarking and things like that.
So, if you don't mind my asking, during any of those huddles, are they bringing up the things that like PJ was concerned about, like the health and wellness, or is it really just like, here's best practices on the new way to sell, or is it like my company is also, I've facilitated these, this is what I really know about it. We've also provided LinkedIn learning on how to work from home. That took all that and condensed it down into a 1-hour lunch and learn and taught that to people. All right, here are 15 things you can do to not go crazy and want to kick your,
Yeah, no, we haven't done,
over. Like,
we haven't done that, unfortunately, and the big reason why is the scope of the work that a majority of our people do is client facing responsibilities. So it's whether they are one of our clients is the UC San Francisco and UC Davis hospital system. So we have a service line where we're working with their staff on safe patient handling. So they're going to be on site and doing their things. But then we'll have some of our people will be working from home, facilitating appointment scheduling, case management, and behavioral counseling and things like that, where most of that they're already versed in remote work. It's really the 5% of our company that works in our 3 corporate offices who'd probably benefit the most out of all that, but it really hasn't been an issue from a productivity standpoint for that small group of people.
Eric, Stephen, what about you guys in terms of, it sounds like you had quite a big shift from being a very in-person organizations to online. What did you talk about?
We ended up, well, I'm going to go back to the biggest surprise piece of this, because one of the biggest surprises that everyone's actually had, including myself, was when you're in the office, it's more surface, get the job done, and you're focused. What has been intentional now is individuals learning more about individuals. So the conversations are very, you have to think about your conversation with someone when you're in a distance setting like we are today. So what we worked with the leadership team is what are the communication practices, because where you could just do a morning pull up with your team and take 15 minutes and 10 minutes and do a stand up and say, this is our plan for the day and knock it out. how do we take that into the virtual? So what we ended up doing was doing the same thing, but through Zoom coffee breaks. We also got the leadership team to agree to do a weekly Zoom meeting on Thursdays. And we just call it office hours. And they actually give the status of the company and where we are revenue wise and all the details, pretty transparent from where we are, plus where we're headed, answer any questions and concerns from the whole company. And it's only 30 minutes. So that's been a huge win in regard to changing perspectives across the company. And then from a benefit standpoint, a lot of the benefits you guys are talking about, we already had in regard to the mental health work perks, we call it. And we've noticed that a number of folks are taking advantage of those, whether it's, oh, I've got time to think about my investments for retirement, so I'll do my Morgan Stanley work perk, or I'll call the legal services for the work perk, or even telemedicine instead of going to the hospital or to a regular doctor appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, I'll give you kind of two contrasting views. So from a company standpoint, our company has actually been more or less fully remote. We had people who did come into the office, especially like our business development team, for example, would really often be in the office. They found that collaboration helpful. So business development, marketing, and then some of our engineering teams and different folks would be in the office relatively regularly. But I'd say probably 60+% of our company was remote, and so we actually have, like, as part of our onboarding process, one of our very passionate, we call our folks nerds. So one of our very passionate nerds about remote culture, like, gives a talk to everybody that comes in about what it's like to work remotely. And we've had a really active Slack kind of culture. I think working with a lot of engineers, they're very comfortable in that environment, right? And very comfortable typing and interacting in that way. And so, that's kind of become, it's not only a work hub, but it's also kind of a social hub, and, people use it in that way. So, from that standpoint, there weren't a ton of shifts that had to be made. It was, I think probably for those of us who were in the Atlanta area was the biggest shift for us. But for most folks, they didn't necessarily feel it day to day. I'll contrast that, like, with our, the training business, like the part of the business that I run, that was exclusively in person. And so, now, I guess, the good thing is that we're used to that. We were used to the remote culture from company culture. So we've been able to kind of relatively quickly, like, transition to running, classes virtually. But a lot of the things that you guys have mentioned, you and PJ both mentioned a couple of things that are kind of key losses in this kind of environment. I think one is, you mentioned the energy thing, and I was thinking about it. It's like, you don't get the energy back, right? It's like you're giving. I think when you're in a group, a lot of times you're giving energy, but you're also getting energy back sort of from the audience and just from being in the same physical space as other people. And when you're on Zoom, there's something that's just not quite the same there. Even if people are really engaged, which is hit and miss, quite honestly, if you're in a training class, right. A lot of times you're like you're just staring at names in little black boxes and things, right? Not even a real person. And so, just like not getting that energy back. And then, as you mentioned, like that ability to, circulate and to just have those kind of informal interactions and also informal check-ins to be able to kind of gauge where people are. All of those things, have definitely been challenges as we're trying to figure out, how to still deliver with quality in virtual.